Okay, B'siyat Tishmei, we're now going to start Perek Chov Vov. So, until now, we have discussed different techniques to develop this gewaltige feeling for the Rabbeinu Shalom, the emotions that we're trying to bring out. And the first 17 prokim talked about using the mind, right? Very much using your brain, using the thinking technique to be able to generate these feelings of love. In Perek 18 to 25, so then we learned about how to get in touch with the love that's sort of like dormant, that's sort of hidden down all the way deep inside us. That's what we've done until now. Now that we know how to sort of reawaken the love for the Rabbeinu Shalom, we have to know how to maintain it. And the greatest challenge is to deal with some of the negative feelings that we sometimes have inside us, and those often prevent us from continuing, to generate and keep that generating going of the love for the Rabbeinu Shalom that we've learned so much about until now. So that's where we begin in Perek Chavov, and he begins like this with a very important announcement. Baram kegoin dot tzorich la'adui klal gadol. I feel it's very important to tell the Olam a very important piece of information to be made here the Olam the following. Just like there's physical competition or a fight, so to speak. For example, what happens if you have a wrestling match between two guys? Right? Each one is trying to chop the other one. He's trying to topple over the other guy, to push him down to the ground. Right? The two guys are wrestling. What happens in such a case? That means, if one of them is doing it half-heartedly, he's doing it very schwach, he's not putting all of his oomph, he's not putting all of his koiches into it, then, Yunutzach Bakal, he is going to be won over, right? He's going to be prevailed, he's going to be defeated, even if he's stronger, by the way. V'yipol, and he'll fall. Gam, Tanya, imhu gibo yosem b'chaveroi. So that means you have two guys having a wrestling match. One guy is stronger than the other guy. The stronger guy is not putting all his effort into it. He's like, he's doing it, but he's not putting all his. So that's it. It's over. He'll be down on the ground in a second, even though he's stronger than the other guy. Very important mashal. This is exactly how it works with the fight, the constant battle that we have with our Yetzer Hara inside us. It's impossible. It is impossible to win over, to overpower, to conquer your Yetzer Hara if you do something very shvach, half-heartedly, not with all of your not with all of the effort that you have inside you, even if you're stronger, which of course you are stronger than your Yetzer Hara. So better you should be able to win because you're stronger, right? But if you're not putting all your effort into it, no chance. The only way to win and prevail and overcome the Yetzer Hara is bezrizas and imsheches mesimcha. It's very important. We're going to talk a little bit about that as well today and a bit more tomorrow. This idea that comes from simcha, upsichas alev, this receptiveness of the heart, v'taroso mekol nidnud daiga ve'etzev ba'olam. When a person is doing something not with his full heart, not with the simcha. When a person has simcha, he has a lot of energy. Go to a chasna, people have energy, they dance. What is the pshat? They're besimcha. When a person has simcha, he's able to do so much more. He's able to dance longer than he thought he could be able to dance for, because lamaisa is besimcha. When a person has that, he's able to win. Whereas when a person has the opposite, and he's upset, or he's down, or whatever it may be, he's got no chance. Then it's all over. And we always know, right? You look into yourself the next time you do an avera, which hopefully will be never. But if you ever come across doing an avera, it's often going to come at a time where you're most weak. Weak not only in physical strength, but also in emotions and everything else that's general is. So there's two aspects that Tanya is telling us. Number one, how much effort you're putting in, irrelevant to how strong you are. And number two, also that you cannot feel already defeated. If you know you're already defeated, it's all over. That's it. Once you're miyayish, it's all over. You have no strength to fight anymore. So you have to have, number one, you have to have the drive. You also have to have the belief. It sounds like that there is some kind of maila, there is some good benefit for a person to be in a little bit of a down situation, maybe we'll call it sadness or whatever, what does that mean? Pasuk Mishnah seems to say it's good. We just said it's a terrible thing. Perish, what does it mean? The Tanya, meaning, what he's telling us over here is enachanami, right? That it's not a chesoron, right? You're doing something that there is a mile to it, meaning there's going to be a constructive purpose that comes out of all of this. What's that, Perish? From the Loshen is mashma, the actual the eitz of the sadness that a person has, mitzad atzmoi, there's zero maila. There's absolutely no advantage to whatsoever. Rak, however, shiagia v'yovoi mimenu eze yisroin. Right? So in Hanami, it's not be'etzem, intrinsically a positive trait, but since there's something that's going to come out of it that's constructive, there's a to'eles that comes out of it. There's eze yisroin that comes out from the sadness. What constructive purpose could possibly come out of sadness? That comes which means if a person is able to focus on his averas, he's focused on how the averas that he does, even though the moment you did them, before you did them, the Yetzer Hara is designed, the whole mahalach, how this is going to make your life better and everything's going to be great and you're going to be happy, and you realize, and you will know, that it's an empty balloon. There's hot air inside it, there's nothing else. So when a person concentrates on realizing how the averas basically that he does lead to nothing, they're dead, so that's a certain sadness. Look what I just did, look what I wasted, look what I just accomplished, zero. That's a sadness. But that sadness has a constructive purpose because it leads to simcha. So be'etzim, what we're saying is sadness and depression and all these things being down is be'etzim a bad thing. But if you're in control of it as opposed to it being in control of you, and you realize that I can utilize this to become a more positive, a more simchadik person with my connection to the Rebbeinu Shalom through that, then it's got an advantage. And that's what the Pasuk Mishnah means, b'chol eitzav yeh moisa. And every eitzav, and every single sadness, there's a moisa, there's a profit, there's a advantage that could come out, okay? As he's going to explain. Sha'ali deizeh. Through a person doing this, through a person introspects and has sadness, whatever, that means when a person taka has this sadness, this is what breaks the barrier that blocks a person, that prevents a person between him and the Rebbeinu Shalom. The Zohar says, "Apostle, ruach nishbar, leiv nishbar." That doing an Aveira, the Zohar Kodesh tells us, puts a wall in front of us and the Rebbeinu Shalom. So a broken spirit, when a person is down and depressed, obviously not in a very clinical way, but just in a small way, so it can actually break that wall. It can break the mechitza, which is between me and the Rebbeinu Shalom after doing that Aveira. And then you couldn't buy Reisha. Now I can make the beginning of the pasuk. Tashmi'eni sasain v'simcha hashiva li sasain yish'acha b'ruach nediva v'chulei. That's the pasuk over there. So what comes out of him, we'll just do one more paragraph, is that the Baal HaTanya is telling us that sadness be'etzem could be a very desirable, a very good thing that has positive results. Number one, only if it's done occasionally. It cannot be something that is happening all the time, day to day, hour by hour. It has to be something that's done with introspection, when a person is focusing on it, using his brain to think about what he has done with his averas and what that means to make his connection to Rebbeinu Shalom very, very far. And number two, it's only the sadness of averas. That's what it is, nothing else. Nothing else is negeya and positive. If you have both of these things, then true, sadness is be'etzem a negative trait. However, it will have, in this case, a positive effect. V'zeh, tam ha'poshet l'tikkun Arizal, lo'ima mizmah acha tikkun chatzos kodem alimut. The Arizal used to always say this specific mizmah after tikkun chatzos, kedei, lilmoid v'simcha amitas b'Hashem haba acha eitziv. Because we know tikkun chatzos, it's a sad thing. It's talking about the Churban Beis Hamikdash. Now we don't have the korbanos and the kahanim and the avodah and everything else, and that gives a person a certain sadness. Mimele, he said this in the mizmah afterwards to give a person a lift, to uplift a person, how that sadness could be utilized in the positive. Sheish the simple zu yisroin ki yisroin araba min achoshes, just like the advantage of light over darkness. Dafka, kamesh koseh b'zoyel pasuk v'isi sheish yisroin lachacham min asichlus. Right, the Zohar Kodesh brings the pasuk in Keheles. The pasuk in Keheles says, "V'isi I see sheyesh yisra, and there's an advantage. L'chachma, of wisdom, min hasiklos, from stupidness, from emptiness. Ki yisra na'or v'nachoshech, like the advantage of light over darkness. Ayin sham, over there. V'dai lemavin, and this is enough over there. In other words, very simply, just like we know that there's an advantage of light over darkness, there's also an advantage of chokhmah, of wisdom, over stupidity. Which means the Zohar Kodesh is telling us when a person thinks about his life, his time, his utilization of the time, his averus, his disconnection, and everything, yes, it may temporarily lead to a little bit of, a bit sad, a bit upset, a bit down because of that, but that will ultimately lead to a lift over there. Which of course famously the Rambam says, this is the pasuk in the Torah, a person gets all the terrible klolus that the Torah says a person gets, because tachas hashalah v'aratzos Hashem elokecha b'simcha, which the Rambam paskins is mamish the, so to speak, the reward, but it's not a reward, of course, it's a punishment for a person not serving Hashem b'simcha. But noidel hakol, this is known to everyone. Perish Arizal al pasuk over there, and this is known to everyone. Arizal explains the pasuk. What does that mean over there? So it's literally mirov kol, which means because you didn't serve Hashem b'simcha when you had everything that you needed in that case. That's why lemaisa negative things happened. But the Arizal reads it slightly different. In other words, Zuk the Arizal, the way you read that is because you didn't experience more simcha in your avodas Hashem than you did in the abundance of everything else. That's why negative things come out. Very darkistic, a very sensitive little difference over there. Mitzvah Hashem tomorrow. B'siyat Shema, we shall continue and finish the parak.